the SCO summit. Everybody, Donald Trump is not happy about it. He just mentioned it, and he said we have a video of him after the summit or during the summit. Here is what he said.
United States, everything in the world would die. It's true. It's so powerful. It's so big, and I made it really big in the first 4 years. Then it started to degenerate with what this Biden administration did. But we built it up to a level that I never thought we could be at this quickly. We're the hottest. We're the best financially. The money coming in is so big because of tariffs and other things, but because of tariffs. Tariff gets us even those other things. Plus, it gets us great negotiators. I settled 7 wars, and numerous of those wars were because of trade.
Yeah, Ambassador, just before going to your comment and that your take on that, he came out, he said, he tweeted, he posted on his social and Truth Social. He said that it's too late for India to come back. They want to come back to us. They want, but it's too late for them. And today, you know what's amazing about Donald Trump? He's so unstable. And today he posted this, and just let me bring it up. It looks like we've lost India and Russia to deepest, darkest China. May they have a long and prosperous future together. He somehow sarcastic way. Your take on what has happened in China and the reaction coming from the Trump administration and Donald Trump himself?
Well, the reaction is, I'm sorry to say, reflection of President Trump's megalomania and petulance. It's not a serious reaction at all. His actions have had the effect of driving countries together around the world in opposition to the United States. And one of the significances of the SCO meeting in Tianjin, aside from the fact that it accelerated the merger of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, which was formed to deal with security issues, counterterrorism in particular, and the BRICS, which was formed to deal with economic issues. These two organizations are now being driven together. And so we see the same personalities in both. We see a level of camaraderie and exploration of cooperation that is unprecedented. But I would put it in a different context. On the Eurasian landmass, the largest landmass on the planet, there are 4 major power centers: Europe, Russia, China, and India. Now, Europe is divided, confused, apparently delusional, not dealing effectively with the war in Europe over Ukraine, continuously putting forward, frankly, absurd suggestions about what to do about that conflict. And you had the other 3 power centers, China, India, Russia, together in Tianjin, exploring how to work together. There's a tendency in the American press, and indeed in Washington generally, to think everything is all about the United States. This was about a lot more than the United States. Of course, it had its element of protest against outrageous American behavior, erratic substitution of a protection racket for normal diplomatic intercourse. In other words, the United States now extorts benefits rather than persuades others to fairly exchange mutual benefit or do things that are profitable to them. And this generates opposition, and we saw that in Tianjin at this meeting. Although people were very polite, they didn't really mention the United States directly. But this is a very, very important development, because this is a big step, together with the BRICS, to creating a sphere in the world from which the United States is excluded and to which it is increasingly irrelevant. So we're seeing a world emerge under pressure from the Trump administration in which the United States is all on its own. even its closest partners in the past, its neighbors, Canada, Mexico, its European partners, are estranged from it. And the best they can do is act sycophantically toward President Trump. They don't like him, they don't admire him, but they fear him because of the power he wields. So this is not the basis for any sort of world order other than one that is dominated by China and the other countries I mentioned, India, Russia, Brazil, other countries, major countries, perhaps the Arab world if it gets its act together, major middle-ranking powers like Turkey or Japan. It will not be a single bloc. What it will have, it will be many blocs or groupings of countries, but what they will all have in common is a dislike of dealing directly with the United States or becoming dependent on the United States. So this is a big deal. And people who say, oh, well, this is just rhetoric and so forth, should remember that it was followed by a military parade in Beijing, which most of the participants, not the Indian prime minister, but most of the other participants in the Shanghai Cooperation Organization meeting attended. And it was also attended, of course, by Kim Jong-un of North Korea. And that parade and the military hardware that was demonstrated, a full nuclear triad, ballistic missiles, aircraft dispatched missiles, submarine dispatched missiles, an air force with multiple capabilities, a military that is designed to deal with drone warfare, that is modernized to a level that is really quite astonishing. This is a gesture of defiance. If the United States plans to attack China, China has just declared it will fight back and it has the capability to do so very effectively. And we have one further development coming out of this series of events in North China, in Tianjin and Beijing, and that is President Putin affirming once again that he will, if he cannot achieve at the negotiating table what he regards as essential for Russian security, he will obtain it on the battlefield, and nothing can stop him. So this was a big event. I guess, there are more elements to it to be discussed, important economic elements, the power of Siberia, the framework agreement between the Russians and Chinese for a major reorganization of the global oil and gas market, Russia turning definitively to China and away from Europe. What does this do to Germany and other countries in Europe that are now deprived of cheap Russian energy? And the decision of the summit in Tianjin by countries, for example, in Central Asia and in the Caucasus to coordinate their development plans with the Belt and Road Initiative is also a major development. This comes at a moment when the United States has abolished U.S. Agency for International Development and therefore has no competitive ability at all to coordinate development plans with others. So this is a big deal, and I think it deserves to be looked at as probably what the Germans call a Zeitenwende, a major climacteric or change of epochs.
Yeah, you've mentioned one of the main, I think, one of the most important points in this summit, which was the power of Siberia pipeline #2. Isn't that amazing that in Germany nobody's talking about it? The Merz is somehow too much involved with calling Vladimir Putin war criminal, and I don't know, with these sort of rhetorics instead of defending the country that he's representing.
Well, I hate to say it because Germany, in the post-World War II period, on many, many occasions, had a very effective government. The Wirtschaftswunder, the economic miracle that occurred in Germany as German reconstruction proceeded, was most impressive. Germany has managed its economy well, although I frankly think that a policy that attempts to deal with the changing world through a combination of austerity, budget austerity, rearmament, kind of military Keynesianism, and shunning the resources of the East, of Russia, while having an uncertain relationship with China, can't work. And indeed, Mr. Merz, Chancellor Merz, who seems to be all out committed to a great increase in defense spending and a very warlike policy, faces the difficulty that the funds he's diverting to rearmament are being taken away from more productive uses in Germany. And to some extent, he is dismantling the German social safety net and welfare system. So this doesn't look like an effective approach, and many Germans have grave doubts about it.
Yeah. You mentioned the parade, military parade in China, and here is what the U.S. ambassador to NATO said about it.
These other countries are having to respond. And, you know, China, I will note, I mean, most of the military equipment they demonstrated in this parade was technology most likely stolen from the United States or our allies. And, you know, they couldn't fight the United States if they tried. You know, we are the only world superpower with the biggest, strongest economy, and that's what we need to continue to do. We need to continue to invest in our defense, and we also need to make sure that we continue to protect the American dream and the American.
2 point, does he know that he's lying, or he just pretends that he knows everything about China?
You know, I think he probably is doing what is called confabulation. That is, he's making stuff up that he believes. And he believes the nonsense he's saying. And it is nonsense. First of all, the weapon systems that the Chinese exhibited, in many cases, sure, it resemble systems the United States has attempted to develop. That is because science and technology drive you toward common configurations, structures. You're an engineer, you know, you want to build an aircraft that flies much faster than sound. There are only so many ways you can design the fuselage of the aircraft or the engines to go to propel it. But he is absolutely way out of date on what is happening. And here, you know, let me make a number of comments, but I would say the great authority on technological innovation now is the Australian Strategic Policy Research Institute. Yes, and this is an institute that was ironically funded by the U.S. Department of State to badmouth China and its technology. But in studying what is happening, it tracks 64 different areas of science and technology. 2 decades ago, the United States was ahead in most of them. And now China leads, as I recall, in 57 of them, South Korea in 2, and the United States in 5. That was the last report. China has over 1/4 of the world's STEM workers, scientists, technologists, engineers, and mathematicians. And its level of innovation is striking. So when we talk about military innovation, just to name a few things which contradict the ambassador, who is obviously a political appointee, who doesn't know what he's talking about, that, first of all, China is the only country to have developed terminally guided warheads that can strike naval vessels far off to sea, aircraft carriers, for example. China has a multiple series of hypersonic missiles. The United States is still trying to build one. China has several fifth generation aircraft in operation and is now introducing sixth generation aircraft on an experimental basis. The quality of Chinese communications, quantum communications, for example, undecipherable by conventional means, the quality of Chinese computing are all superb. The fact that the United States has chosen to deny China access to American semiconductors or graphical processing devices, GPUs, like those from NVIDIA, has simply driven the Chinese to develop their own. And here there's another thing that I would mention, and that is we have driven the Chinese to embargo exports of things like gallium, rare earths. Gallium nitride is the basis for a whole series of new semiconductors, which are essential to military equipment. For example, phased array radar. The United States is being deprived of the materials it needs to innovate in this area. China is moving ahead. So I'm sorry to say that the ambassador is way off base in terms of its evaluation of the scientific and engineering balance between the United States in the military area. And finally, I would note that every war game scenario that we have run with a war over the issue of Taiwan's political status, which we contest with the Chinese, shows that both sides would pay heavily. We would lose 2/3 of our Navy and Air Force. The Chinese might lose the same. But there are two issues that people need to think about. One is that if we lost that level of military power, we don't have the capacity to replace it because our industrial base no longer is sufficient to do so. And second, if we lost that level of military power, we would be finished as a global power, even though the battles took place in the vicinity of China. And I think, therefore, this sort of statement, which is braggadocio or hubris, or a mixture of both, is self-delusional and very dangerous.